We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And as you can see and hear, Tom is back. But I want to quickly say thank you to Lee Overstreet for pinch hitting last week and filling in. And that was a good, fun episode. And we got to preview just the hardware of the Sofabaton U3. So if you're wanting to get unboxing and initial hardware only impressions without actually having turned the things on, you can go back to last week, and Lee and I both cover that for you. I have not completed the full review. I don't want to say I'm going to give a full review of the Sofabaton U3 yet, but if there's time at the end of this episode, I might give some quick initial impressions because I have powered it on now. I have loaded the beta firmware, but I'm not ready to call it a review just yet.
Check the show notes to see if he actually did that.
Indeed.
If you want to fast forward to that part, if that's what you're here for.
Yeah.
So I'm back. Last week I had a big presentation 2 hours away. I had to drive. So, not a ton. My wife's back from where she was gone to.
Yes.
So that's exciting. All the kids are home.
I was going to ask. It's like, so the whole family is actually at home for once, which is kind of a rare occurrence for you guys.
Yes. So the two college-age kids are back. One has a job. The other one we thought had a job. He seemed to have a job, tentative job offer, and he was supposed to maybe start this week, but then things on the job site slowed down. They thought they would be ready to start this week, but we haven't heard. He hasn't heard much of anything from him, other than we're trying to make it happen. Okay, so we'll see. We'll see what happens with him. He's mostly just sleeping.
Oh.
College kids. I guess he didn't get enough last year. Or he's doing stuff with his friends. Now he's got to catch up. So so that's exciting. I mean, nothing exciting on my end. Nothing exciting is happening here. This is all boring. What do you got going on?
I'm not sure I would call anything exciting either. Yeah, we've had a few minor ups and downs with the ants and that, as is always the case going on my end of things. Presently, I'm trying to help out my mom. So, I mean, one thing that you can understand about older parents, she cherishes the photographs that she takes. And so, as my mom and dad have been doing for a long time now, they've just been using their iPhones to take all of their photos. And there's the whole thing of, when none of us are paying for the additional iCloud storage. Right. So I have turned off the automatic backing up of photos and videos because that instantly eats up all of your iCloud storage, and I'm just like, that's not really necessary. Plus, my mom is actually pretty darn good at physically plugging her iPhone into the desktop computer that they have and actually transferring the photos over because, like I say, she cherishes the photos, so wants to make sure that there's no chance of them ever being lost. So they're getting inundated with messages, and I haven't been able to ascertain just yet exactly what form of messages because, my parents are not the best at being able to discern between email and text message and pop-up and, it's a thing that showed up on their iPhone screen. That I am definitely sure of, but I'm not exactly certain precisely what kind of message. And so anyway, they're getting a message that the photo storage is full and that photos are going to be deleted if they don't clear up space. And I'm like, was that an email? Was that just a scam with a link trying to get you to log in so they can steal your information? That has been the warning I've given because, iCloud will give you a warning when your storage is getting, and in fact, they'll warn you when there's still 2 gigabytes left, so it's not really full. But so I mean, they will give you warnings, but they never threaten to erase your photos just because you're approaching getting full, so that's makes me very suspicious that it's actually just a scam message. but nevertheless, because so many things are automated and cloud storage-ified and all that type of stuff, she's very worried that, the photos are going to get erased from something. So that's going to be after we record this podcast, heading over there to make sure everything is ship-shape, because it is causing stress for the parents, and we can't have that.
Lots of stress, yes.
I'm guessing I am not the only person of our generation type age group who has dealt with that sort of situation.
No.
I do not feel alone.
No, you should not. Let's see here. So, well, for those of you that we're interested in Sofabaton, we're going to have a bunch. I guess we're going to have a bunch of links. Is that true, Rob?
I mean, just continuing. I'll continue to put. So Lee and I went over these links and promo codes last week. They are, for the time being, remaining the same. The one to know is that the U3. So that's the newest remote. The U3 early bird pre-order deal, where you can pre-order it for $100 instead of the MSRP, which is $130. That is going to be ending on May 28th. So, I mean, you will just barely hear this. If you hear this podcast episode immediately when it posts, you will just barely have time to put in a pre-order for that at the reduced price if you want to. Now, look, it's Sofabaton, so there are going to be deals and sales in the future. This will not be your only opportunity to ever purchase a U3 for less than $130. But when the thing officially launches, they're still aiming for like the very end of May, beginning of June. We'll see if they're fully able to hit that target date. But it seems like they're pretty close to on schedule this time with the U3. So yeah. Anyway, that early bird pre-order is still extant at the moment that we're recording this. We'll still have the link that gets you there, and they are doing the thing where across all the like influencers and reviewers who have access to this link, every day they have a supply of 50 of the charging docks, which they're selling for $30 normally. But they have a supply of 50 of those per day. But it's like all the people with the links going to this early bird sale are sharing that supply. So they're gone pretty quick. It seems to be updating at 7 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That seems to be when the resupply occurs, as far as I'm able to tell. So like I say, this might be your very last chance to get in there. I'm making no guarantees that you will get a free charging dock along with it. But you can definitely get in on the early bird reduced price if you hear this early enough. So yeah, just reiterate, we still have affiliate and discount code links for the X1S and the X2. So all of that information, it'll be in our show notes. It'll be on our description below the video on YouTube. You have to go through the links that we provide and then enter the codes that'll be listed there.
I will say that there's a non-zero chance I'm going to be interrupted in the middle of this podcast because I have a monitor coming in, which I ordered from Amazon, and they're supposed to. Apparently, I have a neighbor whose our houses, for whatever reason, that we're all pretty close to each other, and the delivery drivers are like, "This is close enough. They'll get to the right place." So, and one of the neighbors is like, "If it's on my doorstep, it's mine." They won't give it back to you, whatever it is, no matter if they need it or not. But so when Amazon said, "Hey, do you want us to have a special code and make sure we deliver it to a person?" I was like, "Yeah, do that." So
because I was going to say, but by default, Amazon is not going to knock. They're just going to leave it outside or maybe on your driveway entrance, which is not uncommon. And so I wasn't thinking that would be an interruption. But yes, your explanation makes sense.
So they're going to send me a code, and then I have to give the driver that code. So I will have to send. But nobody else is home right now, so I can't pass it off to anybody. But just in case I could get up in the middle of a sentence, that's what's going on.
Yeah, it won't be the first time that we've ever seen you, if you're watching the YouTube, get up from the seat and walk away for a little while. So, but this might be more abrupt than the regular interruptions. We have been pre-warned. All right.
Yeah. All right. So, this week has been just sort of relaxing. My wife came back, and then while she was gone, so we ordered. So we have a very large living area, and it has the kitchen in there, and then there's like a sitting area. So for that sitting area, we ordered a couple of couches and a coffee table, which have been kind of here for a while. But my wife could not decide, and we couldn't really decide on a rug that we liked. It needs an area rug right there. We couldn't really decide on it. So right before she left, she found one she liked on Etsy, and I was like, at this point, I don't really care anymore. I just want it to be done. So she ordered this rug on Etsy, and it was whatever. It took a while to get here. It got here, and then it was all folded up and stuff, and we had to like lay it out and do the whole thing to make it straight, flat on the ground. It mostly is crease free at this point, but Saturday, or was it Sunday? I think this was a long weekend. Sunday, my wife was like, let's have our friends over for dinner tonight. And I was like, or tomorrow night, because it was Saturday when she said this. I was like, okay, I guess. I mean, we still have a stack of boxes that we haven't unpacked yet, sitting in the middle of the living room floor and all that. So I think everybody does this. We use the fact that our friends are coming over as motivation to get things done. Yep. So now the rug is out. It's placed properly underneath the couches. The boxes are all taken care of. And last night, my wife was like, our house actually feels like we've moved in. And I'm like, great. So the internet is crazy because she ordered this thing.
Don't say.
She ordered this thing from Etsy, and you don't really know who you're ordering from when you order from in Etsy. You do, but you don't really. And it turned out that this thing is like handmade in India, but it's the price of less than what you would pay if you went to like a Macy's or some sort of rug store or whatever for the same size rug. And I'm looking at it right now. I'm like, how did this come from India? It took 3 weeks to make or whatever. I'm like, how did this thing happen? It's insane the way that the internet works these days with us all having access to everybody else, which you would think would be the great equalizer, but somehow makes everything worse. So that's what I did instead of watching TV. I placed rugs and put things away and been organizing things. So, Rob, what did you watch?
It still feels like an accomplishment. Yes, that was all a preamble and a run-up to say that we are talking about what we watched, but it is Tom's explanation for why there are no movies or TV shows listed in his section.
I will tell you, though, that now that room is done, the only room that's not really finished is the home theater. So now I have this crazy gnawing at the back of my brain. Like, I can't look at the stack of boxes in the living room and say, well, I have to finish this before I finish, running speaker wire. I've got all this stuff. I just need to run it. And I haven't done it yet. So, yeah.
But so I did watch one movie at home this week, which was Project Hail Mary. That's actually been mentioned on this here podcast before because Joe already watched it. And did Lee already watch it? Joe definitely did. I can't remember if Lee did. He didn't talk about it last week, but it was when both of them were on last, and Joe definitely watched that in theaters. So I waited until it came home, and I watched it on Apple TV. I actually just went ahead and did the purchase on this one. I figured with all the hype and all the positive reviews, and I haven't seen a single person have a negative reaction to this movie, I figured, I'll go ahead and just buy this thing sight unseen. I did very much enjoy The Martian from before, and so this is from the same writer, which is Drew Goddard. And of course Andy Weir, who wrote the novel, both The Martian and Project Hail Mary, and then was involved in the screen adaptation. But this Project Hail Mary is directed by Lord and Miller. Know them from like the Lego movies and from the Spider-Verse movies, and then oodles and oodles of other stuff. But always, I can't think of anything Lord and Miller have done where I haven't been like, that is probably better than I expected it to be. And so, yes, as everyone knows by this point, starring Ryan Gosling in almost a one-person performance, similar to the way Matt Damon was almost a one-person performance in the Martian. There are definitely similarities going on there of an individual human being in a dire situation in outer space of some sort, or off planet anyway, off of Earth. But also his co-star, as it were, is James Ortiz. As the voice of the other character that Ryan. I mean, people are pretty familiar with Project Hail Mary, like just surface level, right? Like, I mean, they put it in all of
I'm
the...
not. But
okay,
go ahead.
well, I'll try not to give anything away. Then there is a voice that Ryan Gosling speaks to. He isn't just externalizing his inner monologue entirely, so that he has some words to say to the microphones and the camera. There is another voice that he is talking to, and that is voiced by James Ortiz. And then Sandra Hüller is sort of the character back on Earth that we follow the most. And so yeah, I've really enjoyed all the performances I've seen of her. She was in Anatomy of a Fall, and what was that? I mean, very depressing movie about the family that lives just outside of Auschwitz during World War II. But her performances are always very, very good, and she's very, very good here again. Playing a very stoic, supposedly like self-admittedly humorless person, but because she's so deadpan, it is humorous. Like that's funny, the whole thing that goes across there. So yes, I mean, this is a very enjoyable movie. I would have an easier time outright declaring this a comedy than The Martian was. I mean, there was all the kerfuffle about how The Martian won awards as a comedy, and people were like, yes, there are moments when you laugh in The Martian, there's no doubt about that, but would you really classify it as a comedy in terms of the genre? The Project Hail Mary, I would say, is outright closer to, if you called it a comedy, I wouldn't say that's wrong. It's a sci-fi comedy. But for my own personal taste, maybe I'm a little bit of an outlier here. And like I say, it's not that I'm saying I didn't enjoy this movie. I absolutely did. But I enjoyed The Martian more. I'll just say it as simply as that. And I think it's because what was so impressive about The Martian, and of course there are, you can nitpick little details in terms of the science as it's portrayed in The Martian, but it is such a plausible scenario in The Martian. We're talking about near future, really could happen, and it really is. I mean, not everybody absolutely enjoys the narrative, but it really is just a story of a series of problems that are thrust upon Matt Damon's character in The Martian, and what is interesting is seeing how the heck he solves one problem after another. It's not... Sure. And because of that, you get the themes of, obviously man versus environment, but also man versus himself, and existential questions that arise from it, but all within the context of a very, very plausible, believable, understandable series of problems. Now, Project Hail Mary is not wildly different. Again, it's a series of problems in space that Ryan Gosling has to solve, including a slightly different beginning to his space journey, where he doesn't even really know where he is or what he's doing when we first meet him. Whereas Matt Damon's character in The Martian did know what's up. But Project Hail Mary is such a much more far-flung scenario that it's not that it's like scientifically you couldn't possibly believe it, but it's not as relatable a scenario. It's not something where you can go, oh yeah, I can totally see that happening within, within my lifetime, basically. This is like much more of a far-flung scenario, much more of a none of this is really under human control scenario, whereas The Martian entirely, it was a mission where problems arose. This is just like a completely... You might as well call it act of God type of scenario is what's going on in Project Hail Mary. And for my personal taste, it just meant that, like, I wasn't able to entertain the idea of, oh, that's a really believable scenario. How is it going to be solved? It's like, it's not that the science was bad. It's just that it's kind of so far flung that I don't feel like I'm connected to it as much. And so, since the book, which I'll admit I haven't read the full book, so I'm going off of other people's comments, but saying that it really got much more detailed, like kind of nitty gritty detail on the science in the book, which you wouldn't expect a movie to really do. But the movie, they decided to focus much more on the emotion, which makes sense. That totally makes sense for a movie adaptation. You're going to focus much more on the emotion than on the nitty gritty science details of it. But it did, as a result, feel like a lot of the science was kind of glossed over or very much hurried over, or a line or two was said about it, but without really any explanation. So I was like, okay, it's not that the science was bad, but it felt very incomplete. And this movie isn't setting out to try and be an educational film. It is focusing much more on the emotion of it. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed The Martian more because it felt much more grounded. It felt much more tangible and truly believable in that, like, absolutely, I could see that scenario playing out. Project Hail Mary, you have to be willing to entertain and suspend a lot of disbelief and be like, okay, that is a not impossible scenario that could occur, but I just have to be willing to accept the scenario that's presented to us and go, okay, well, if that happened, which seems exceedingly unlikely, but if that happened, then maybe this is one way that it could play out, and it's a little more entertaining it that way. Yeah.
All right. It's apparently got good reviews. And
it has very good, and like I said, I did enjoy it. I felt like once in a while the other voice that Ryan Gosling is talking to, like I say, because of the way it all plays out, I'd be much more willing to just call it an outright comedy. And some of it I found like I was a little bit starting to roll my eyes at some of the dialogue that was going on because it was so blatantly being played for laughs. It wasn't that the comedy just came out of the scenario. It was that they're trying to have a character outright sound funny, not even necessarily say a good joke, like just sound funny, say something funnily, and we're supposed to chuckle at that. I'm like, okay, that's kind of a low bar for comedy. Is just having someone say normal words in a funny way. Is that really like peak writing? And I didn't really feel that way. The other thing was, there is part of the science that, so there has to be an explanation of why the other character that Ryan Gosling is talking to, why now is the first time that he's ever been in contact. Like how it could be in the scenario that's presented that we have never had contact with this voice before. It's kind of like seems very improbable given everything that we've set up here. There is not an explicit explanation. It's not like somebody sits down and says this is exactly why that's the case, but you can piece together from the description of the other character that Ryan Gosling is talking to. You're like, okay, there's a reason given here why we haven't been in contact before, but it ultimately doesn't make sense. It's kind of like, how did this character detect the problem with the star that Ryan Gosling also detected if, like, they can't receive radio communications from Earth? So how did they notice the problem with the star? It's like, it didn't quite all lie, which is probably why they didn't give an explicit explanation for it. But I was just, that to me was noodling in my head, like, because this is an Andy Weir project, because this is science fiction where science, it plays a prominent role, and they're not trying to just hand wave away all the science. Right. They're not trying to make it magic.
Not trying to do a reverse polarity.
Yeah.
Just reverse polarity.
They're trying to give real plausible scientific explanations for everything that we're saying. Like saying, it's a more far-flung scenario, but they're trying to give, actual scientific explanations. So because they avoided the explicit explanation of why we've never had this character in contact before, I was like, but then how did he know about the star? And I'm like, well, maybe there's another, but they didn't sit down and explain it to me, at least in the movie. Maybe they do in the novel, and all those pieces are filled in, but it left me scratching my head a little bit. But there you go. So yes, Project Hail Mary, I do give it a thumbs up, or as Joe mentioned in this movie, a thumbs down, which means a good thing within the context of the movie. But yes, okay. I know. It's just for the people who have seen it.
For the people who have seen it, they will get that joke.
I don't think I am quite as enthusiastic about it as most of the reviews that I've seen out there. It is a positive review for me, but I'm not over the moon about it. There we go.
All right. This is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. Get your questions answered. All you have to do is ask us by emailing us at question@avrant.com. Come to the website, find our shows, our show notes, and previous episodes, as well as in the Flickr album, so that you can follow along with the pictures that we'll be referring to, and links to any products or articles that we mentioned during the course of this podcast. Mm-hmm. You can contact us. Where am I here? You can contact us. Find us at facebook.com/AVRant podcast, youtube.com/AVRant. You can contact us directly, rob@avrant.com. His socials is at First Reflect. Mm-hmm. I don't think any of us are really doing that many. You're just on Blue Sky these days, right?
It's really just Blue Sky for me these days. Yeah. That's right.
And I'm at tom@avrant.com. And I do read those emails. So in case you're thinking you're sending it into the void if you send it to me, people have gotten responses to me from me recently. So, somebody sent in a question that hits me when I'm sitting down, not really doing anything. And I'm like, oh, here's my answer. Boom. It was a capacitor. So,
that's our running
might not
thing
be long.
now, is it?
It might not be as long as Rob's response, which is pages upon pages of stuff. It's just me with 3 words. It's a capacitor. And then that's it. And then you have to decipher what that means. Like, how did Tom know? I don't know. It doesn't make sense in the context of the story of which we read. Okay, listen. Not everything's an Andy Weir book.
Right.
We want to thank our listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, you can support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you do that is going to avrant.com, click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and send us a PayPal donation. We had 3 people in the last 2 weeks. David and Michael, 2 weeks ago, in the last, I guess in that first of those 2 weeks, sent in donations, and Dan sent in a donation this week. So thank you very much, David, Michael, and Dan.
Yes, indeed. As I mentioned last week, I didn't know if we had any PayPal donations, but Tom is back to regale us with all of the names that are involved here. So David, Michael, and Dan, thank you so much for those PayPal donations. Really appreciate that financial support.
I am galing you. With donations, yeah. We also, if you want to support us financially monthly and not have to think about it, you can sign up at patreon.com/AVRant podcast, become one of our monthly subscribers or contributors. We currently have 121 patrons every month. Patreon takes some amount of money from them, whichever they dictate, a minimum of $1, so $12 a year, and gives most of it to us. So thank you to all of our patrons.
Indeed, that is patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So a big thanks to our 121 patrons over there.
We also got notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going from Julian, from Chris. Chris says he's listened to, or she, I don't know. That can go either way. But he's listened to every episode in its entirety since 2015, and he is definitely a member of the 2 Hour Plus Club several times over, but he can only remember one of the secret words. So he says getting older should be illegal.
Right.
Michael and Joe. So Julian, Chris, Michael, and Joe. Chris, I will tell you that I forget people's names seconds after they tell me. So I would be a member of the 2 Hour Plus Club in that I know it existed, but could not remember what I was supposed to say. So you are not alone in this. So thank you to all of you.
Right. I'll say the names one more time. We got Julian, Chris, Michael, and Joe. Thank you all very much for those notes of gratitude and encouragement. We very much appreciate them. And a big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
In the news, ICEpower from Denmark has introduced all new Class D amplifier modules or whatever that they have dubbed Super Conductor. So the new SC400A2, so Super Conductor 400, whatever, we'll find probably 400 watts, and A2 is, I don't know. Anyways, probably the second version of this. Maybe it's a 2-channel amplifier.
Amplifier 2, there you go. Yeah. I mean, honestly, the model number makes a whole lot of sense here. It is not completely random letters and numbers.
Yeah, 2-channel amplifier module delivers 400 watts into a 4-ohm load. So it's a 200-watt amplifier for everybody else.
Pretty much for 8-ohm load.
Yeah. ICEpower's CTO and amplifier designer made no bones about it. He said the recent developments by Purify and Hypex spurred ICEpower to redesign their older Ice Edge Class D designs, and the new superconductor design is their response. The new design actually keeps the signal being amplified completely analog and puts it through a globally controlled oscillation modulator. I'm going to be honest.
I'm not going to pretend that I understood the technical details of how this thing works.
That sounds like the Marvin the Martian invented it. The globally controlled oscillation modulator.
It's something.
Plus a nested series of feedback loops. I'm sure this makes sense to an engineer out there, and good on you. As a result, the ICEpower claims is a noise floor and harmonic distortion so low that they had to replace their audio precision measurement equipment just to accurately measure the results. And while the new design is technically still load dependent, it doesn't start to roll off until close to 100 kilohertz now. Lovely. Who cares about it? Above 20 kilohertz, but whatever. So in practice, you can now connect any speaker of any impedance without the frequent response changing within the audible frequency range.
So that's the important part.
I guess so.
Because before, so the like one of the criticisms when the first generation of the ICE amps came out, the Class D ICE amps, when the first generation came out, Audioholics definitely measured those, and they detected that, okay, it's really only in the treble. They're very, very good at powering pretty much any impedance load that you might find in the bass. But in the treble, if you happen to have lower than typical impedance in whatever type of tweeter you were using, that the ICE Class D modules, the first generation, they did not remain completely linear in their frequency response. They would start to roll off and have some wiggles. It's in the high end. Maybe you could hear it, maybe you couldn't, but at least on a scope, you could measure that they didn't remain completely ruler flat. It did depend on the impedance of the tweeter, of the speaker that you were powering. They went along to their Ice Edge platform, which was at least second generation. It might have been further down the generation line than that, but it was enough of a change that they did a rebranding. And that got to the point where it's like, well, you gotta get some fairly far afield speakers, but it was still technically possible. It was still technically possible that if the load of your speaker fell outside of the norm, you might not have completely perfectly linear frequency response across the entire audible frequency range. And so that was actually one of the design goals with originally HypeX and then definitely with Purify. They were like, we're gonna have a Class D amplifier, but it's gonna be completely load independent. Connect anything you want practically down to a short circuit and across the entire audible frequency range. You're not going to have any change in the frequency response. And theirs is a significantly different design with significantly larger modules. Each of the amplifier modules in the HypeX or the Purify is considerably larger than these very compact ICE brand modules. But more components, larger modules, all of that. ICEpower still had the advantage in terms of size and price. So with this brand new design, this Super Conductor design, they're retaining the small physical size and the limited amount of circuitry. It is still, in a completely technical sense, somewhat load dependent, but they're like, it really doesn't start reacting until upwards of 100 kilohertz. So it's like you are not going to hear when this thing starts to react to the impedance load. Your speakers really shouldn't be trying to play anything up that high. So as far as 20 kilohertz goes, it's going to remain ruler flat.
So I often roll my eyes at claims that are outside of the audible range because I know that this doesn't make a difference, but in order to fix something within the audible range, oftentimes, when you measure the actual performance of a thing, it doesn't start having issues or whatever until past the audible range. Right. And it's a true statement that I'm assuming that they're making, that it doesn't start having problems until 100 kilohertz. So why wouldn't you? Instead of just saying there are no problems within the audible range and you'll never have any problems within the audible range, that just is going to allow somebody who is disingenuous and looking for clicks to say, well, that just means at 21 kilohertz it starts to have problems. You're like, okay, might as well put it in there. The fact that I'm rolling my eyes is not an insult to them. It is more of just me being like, I can't believe we have to say these words, because if not, somebody's going to be a jerk about it. And that's what it kind of comes down to.
It was a little bit more a case of because pretty much all of the messaging was coming from the CTO, but he is also the amplifier designer at ICEpower. So he's not just a C-suite executive who has absolutely no hands-on experience with any of this stuff. He is an engineer, and he is involved, very, very much involved in the amplifier design at the company. And it's more a case of, you ask this guy a question, and he's going to answer like an engineer and not like a marketing guy. So that's where some of these details come. Because, the thing is, he's proud. He's proud of what they've designed. He's proud of the improvements that have been made. So, but he's not going to say, oh, well, yeah, it's completely load invariant now. We've borrowed the design from HypeX and copy. He's like, no, this is our design. This is ICEpower design, but we've gone a little bit back to the drawing board. We had slightly different design goals than HypeX and Purify have. We had other things that we wanted to meet, but we wanted to match their performance. So he's like, well, it is still technically load dependent, but it's at such a high frequency now that it's not going to affect anything in the audible range. So it's a very complete answer. It's a very, as far as I can, it didn't seem
correct, right?
And it didn't seem like a trying to pull one over on anyone type of it seems like a
Yes.
very technical, I'm proud of what we've achieved answer. And so for that reason, I believe that information that was given.
Well, and you could make the argument, and maybe I would even make this argument, that you should be making claims way above the human frequency range of hearing, simply because there are people out there who are going to claim that you know, super tweeters are a thing that should be important to you.
I mean, it's for those people with their 384 kilohertz DACs. You know, you got to get up over 100 kilohertz in playback.
I'll read the rest of this, even though I think Rob touched on most of it. To go along with the new superconductor module, ICEpower has also developed their own 750-watt power factor correction power supply. Yay. The ICEpower amp modules are physically much smaller than either the Purify or Hypex modules, and they generate less heat, but they warned that achieving these results required a very tight tolerances on parts, so the new modules are considerably more expensive than their older ICE Edge modules. So I had amps that were the original ICE modules, and in my system, in my experience, like comparing them to an Emotiva Class AB amplifier, there was an audible difference between those amps.
Right.
I experienced, and it was the only time I've ever heard an audible difference between amplifiers.
Right.
Was at that point. Since then, before that and since then, I have never experienced an audible difference between amps, and I think that, you know, this is part of it, right? So you've got. In order to, you know, in this case, we talk about, you know, like subwoofers. You can have the three. You can be loud. You can be low. You can be small. Mm-hmm. Pick two. You know, here's the same sort of thing with this ICEpower amp. They're like, okay, we had these design constraints. We want to be small. We want to generate just a little bit of heat, but we also want to be able to do this other thing that we're doing. So what's the trade-off? Very tight tolerances, and which means higher costs. I think that's fine. I think there's no reason that you can't say that and say, okay, well, if I'm going to pay for it, I want to know what I'm getting, and this is what I'm getting. Yeah,
it is not an incomprehensible explanation for why things are. It's a very well reasoned, and I mean, look, where, you know, you can see this little side angle view of it, and it's like, that's not a simple PCB, right? That's I'm betting there are components on both sides of both layers of that PCB, which has been physically separated for some reason. They didn't do that by accident. So it's like there's some reason for the design choices here. Yeah, this doesn't look like a dead simple to construct module that's going on here. Even though it is very compact, it's very small. It is
tiny. It like fits in the palm of this dude's hand. If you're looking at the article here, it's very small. And in fact, the power supply one isn't overly large either. So,
not really, no. But I mean the power supply that he's holding is about the size of the Hypex or Purify amplifier modules. So, you know, for the comparison of the sizes there, that's it's considerably. So I'm interested in these. So this isn't really like as an end user, you're not necessarily going to buy these new ICEpower modules yourself. I mean, although there are DIY folks out there for sure, but it's more likely that you're going to see this incorporated into other, from other manufacturers, components where they're using ICE brand modules, including, you know, for example, Marantz, right? What Marantz has in their big Class D amplifiers, that's ICEpower modules in there. There was also a little bit of an update tangential to this where they sort of announced instead of ICE Edge, it's now going to be ICE Conductor. So this is the Super Conductor. This is the new thing. This is the newly developed one. But there's now going to be ICE Conductor, which is an update to their existing modules. But what they've basically done is put it's a little controller chip. That's the change. So the design of the amplifier modules themselves is not a gigantic change. This new superconductor one is like from the ground up. It's fully different. But they're going to be reutilizing the design of their existing amplifier modules, but with a new little controller chip that they say does a better job of improving the performance. So that's almost going to be like a running order change. We as consumers probably aren't even going to notice that, and it was designed to be like a drop-in replacement, right? You're going to be able to have this improved performance from the existing manufacturing lines at very similar prices, but based on some of the stuff they learned developing the superconductor version, they're like, hey, we can improve our older ones, and the prices on those won't have to go up very much at all.
Good. So RBH has added a new tower speaker model to its entry-level impression series, but it's only available to purchase through authorized dealers. You cannot add it to your online cart like the rest of the Impression series to buy it directly from RBH. And then they have also streamlined their model numbers and separated folded ribbon tweeter versions into the new Inspire series. So gone are the confusing I and IR suffixes. You now get the Impression 5 bookshelf with the dome tweeter and the Inspire 5 bookshelf with the folded ribbon tweeter, Impression 85 tower, Inspire 85 tower, and so on. So a W suffix indicates on-wall models, and the passive speaker ball models remain dealer only as well. So the new tower model is the Impression 88 or the Inspire 88. Compared to the 85 tower models, these have two 5.25-inch mid-range drivers, one above and one below the tweeter, rather than just a single mid-range driver. And they have two 8-inch bass woofers, one on either side of the cabinet near the bottom, rather than just a single 8-inch woofer. Man, this sounds a lot like what they used to do before. So.
You are going to be able to recognize this as an RBH speaker. They are not.
This sounds. If you ask me to envision what a tower speaker from RBH looks like, yes. This is exactly what it looks like in my mind.
They're not breaking the mold.
No.
Yeah, this is similar design language from RBH. Nothing super surprising there, but yeah, it is a new speaker model. And
the
then
dual side firing woofers is a little bit different because usually they just have one on one side.
That's right.
But yes,
this one has one on the other side. There's two of the 8 inches, and you can clearly see in the photos there. You only see one 8-inch driver on one side. The other one's got to be on the other side.
Yeah, if you told me that they did this just so they would no longer have to answer questions about which one was left and which one was right,
okay.
I would believe you, because I believe that might be the single most frequently asked question of anybody who's bought a tower speaker with a woofer on one side. Well, which side does it go on? And they're like, it doesn't. Really doesn't matter, but whatever. Make it. I mean,
to go along with that, they get to say it has higher output capabilities.
Yeah.
So that's probably the main thing they're going to say. But yeah, I don't think you're wrong there. It's got the benefit of being not having to worry which one's left and right anymore. But I just appreciate. I thought you, Tom, would also appreciate that. Rather than getting ever more complicated model numbers with additional suffixes and stuff, they're like, there's the Impression series if you want the dome tweeter. Yeah. There is the Inspire series if you want the folded ribbon tweeter. Other than that, the cabinets are the same, the woofers are the same, the choices are as far as cabinet colors are the same. Yeah. So everything's being shared between the Inspire and the Impression. It's not like they went back to the drawing board for the Inspire series. This is truly a naming convention change. But now they just get to say, okay, you got the Inspire 5 and you've got the Impression 5. One of them has a folded ribbon tweeter, the other one has a soft dome tweeter, and it's like quite easy to understand, and the names make sense.
Yeah, I will tell you that this new 88 tower that they're selling in both these versions here, and it is available only through dealers.
Yes,
it might. I'm sure there's a number of reasons for it, but the fact that it's so deep might actually be part of that as well. It's like, listen, don't order this online and then have it come in and go, geez, I didn't realize. Because the other one's a little bit more compact and squarish.
A little bit, yeah. A little bit.
This one is very deep. So seeing it in person kind of makes sense to me. I don't love that when they do dealer only stuff. I would like it all to be,
Yeah, me too.
I think it sets them up for failure. Honestly, like sell the super high end stuff dealer only, and that's great.
Right. Yeah.
But the more consumer level stuff, make it all online. But that's just me. That's what I believe. They have their own.
I mean, the majority of the product lineups in both the Impression and now Inspire series are. But yeah, they've got the passive speaker bars, and now the flagship tower are dealer only.
Yeah. Comments. Trevor heard Rob and Lee last week saying that we couldn't find many differences between the Denon X3800H and the new X3900H receiver model. So he went digging, and this is what he came up with. All right, this is Trevor doing our jobs for us. Rob,
that's right.
How dare you fall down on the job
I was negligent and incomplete, so Trevor is here to correct me, and I appreciate it.
I was an absentee father during this process. So the new official AMD FreeSync support that we mentioned is new, all right? Mm-hmm. The 38900H is using different, supposedly upgraded DACs, which I cannot express to you how little DACs make a difference. Like, upgrade them all you want. Like, who cares? Just put it, it's just so stupid that we're still talking about DACs.
I am very convinced that when it comes to a company like Denon, this is much more a matter of just availability. Like, we need this many. which ones are available, and whatever company they're in contract with is like, well, we got these ones, and they're like, that's perfectly fine. And so they happen to be different and newer, which is not unusual.
Yeah.
But
these are the ones we're making now. Oh, okay, we'll take. Well, we actually need 10,000 of them. Which one can you sell 10,000?
They need a heck of a lot more than that, considering how many DACs are in each one of them. Because some of these things are 12 or more than that, because they got 4 subwoofer outputs on some of them. So yeah, you got 15, 16 DACs going.
I think availability makes a lot of sense here. Like we upgraded our DACs. Why? Because the old DACs aren't available anymore, so we needed new ones.
Very much the case.
And we need 1 million of them. So
there was, of course, the video where it was much more aimed at audio files type of video. Why they're even interested in the 3900H as an audio file, I'm not sure. And they're like, yes, it's the new upgraded DACs, and it's a clearly audible difference. I'm like, well, then something went horribly wrong, because we saw the measurements on the 3800H DACs, and it's like, that was a ruler flat line. So if it's a clearly audible difference, something has gone horribly astray. Much more likely, absolutely nothing changed in terms of audibility. It's just the audiophile tagline of, hey, they say it's upgraded, so I heard the difference. How could I not hear the difference? The marketing said it was upgraded.
It's true. We have not had a DAC question in a long time. Every once in a while, we'll have somebody write in with I was playing my movie and did it this way, and then I did it this way. Is it the DACs that are the difference? That the answer to that question hasn't been yes in 30-something years, maybe. So, anyways, the remote is fully backlit now. So what Lee quickly found searching via AI was correct about that. Of course, Lee used AI. Lee's the worst. But there are a couple of changes we missed. You can now reassign one of the height channels to allow for bi-amping of your center channel. So it's possible to bi-amp all 3 of your front speakers, not just the front, left, and right. Now I get to say no to 3 speakers being bi-amped instead of just 2.
And this is the 3900H, so it's not like you got fully reassignable everything, and you're dealing with 11 channels of processing and 9 built-in amplifiers. So if you are bi-amping your front 3, that means you are stealing, in effect. It's not as though you can say, hey, use the surround back amplifiers to bi-amp my front, left, and right speakers, but still let me use the surround back pre-outs to still have surround back channels. Like, no. If you do the bi-amping thing, the surround back channels are gone. You don't get to have surround backs anymore. Now you can have bi-amped front, left, and right. That used to be where the 3800H stopped as far as bi-amping things goes. But now they're like, well, there's the people who wanted all 3, so you can steal one of the height channels. That's the way you can do it.
All right, you can now send Atmos music via AirPlay 2. So that's something.
That's something.
The Atmos decoder has been slightly tweaked so that if the original recording only has 2 actual channels of height information included, instead of using audio objects, the X3900H will expand those height sounds to utilize all of your height speakers instead of just the top middles. I like that. I think that's a thing. That's probably not bad. And lastly, 1440p resolution is officially supported, which sometimes worked, but sometimes didn't on the 3800H. So there you go.
Indeed. I will absolutely still stick to my advice that
just buy the 3800H and not worry about any of this nonsense.
The most exciting thing about the 3900H is that the 3800H is going to go on clearance sale.
That's right.
At a much lower price. Because I'm looking at this feature set and I'm going, well, I mean, it's not like I'm not upset about this, but it's also
there's nothing in here that's problematic. There's also nothing in here that's going to change anybody's life or be audible or noticeable in any way, shape, or form.
Or a
very
truly significant upgrade.
Yeah, very select people will go, "Ooh, that's the thing I was looking for."
Right.
And everybody else is going to be like, I'm okay with it just being.
I mean, if they were going to say that they have the upgraded DACs, why aren't they just proudly saying we have upgraded HDMI circuitry? Because they clearly do. It's clearly a more modern HDMI board that now has official AMD FreeSync support, even though AMD FreeSync passed perfectly fine through the 3800H. It just wasn't officially supported. And then the 1440p resolution, which usually made it through the 3800H, but every so often, depending on exactly what components you've got connected on either end, sometimes 1440p didn't make it through on the 3800H, and now it's officially supported. It's an why aren't they upgraded HDMI circuitry? They could.
I wonder if the entire DAC industry as a whole is predicated upon the constant claims of upgrades, and therefore part of them selling a bajillion DACs to one company is like, we will give you a 1% discount if you just say upgraded DACs, someplace. so that we can keep making more of these things. Because if not, it's just going to, we have no money for research because we're selling these things to you for pennies. I would be interested to know an insider's perspective on that. All right, Infinite Gary. Infinite Gary is abiding by my decree that he not send any more Panasonic finds from his basement. God, that's such a strange sentence to read out loud. But what about an item he cannot identify? He found an interesting cylinder. It's really kind of a cone, but let's go on. It's silver and metal. If you're not seeing this, go to the YouTube video where you can see the pictures, or go to the Flickr album, which is on our show notes here. It's silver and metal with a thick rubber gasket around a little porthole window. And on the bottom, it's marked as load 1,000 watts with 3 prongs for some sort of power connection. I guess that's on the bottom?
It is on the bottom.
Any idea what this is? Apparently something his father brought home at some point in his role as technical editor for Electronic Technical magazine in 1959. It looks like one of the lasers from... Real Genius,
right?
That movie with what's his name? Oh my God, it's going to bother me that I can't remember his name. But it looks. I don't know. I mean, I want to believe it's a fake audio device that's supposed to make things better, but it actually looks like some sort of I don't. What's the rubber gasket for, though?
I know,
it's supposed to hold oil. Because if this whole thing was supposed to hold oil, it's some sort of a transformer or something like that. But 1,000 watts, it's weird.
Yeah. So I mean, as far as the electrical connection on the bottom goes, the only place I've seen that same type of electrical connection is like on some RVs. Some RVs still use that old connection. It's an older commercial electrical connection, so that lines up. That makes sense, and it clearly says load 1,000 watts, so that's pretty high. That sort of rules out that this is just a light bulb, because a 1,000-watt light bulb is not completely out of the realm of possibility, but seems a little unlikely. I didn't know offhand. I did try like a Google image search, and it thinks that it is a beam splitter.
It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's probably right, but I don't know what a beam splitter... what beam would it be splitting? I don't understand.
Laser beam.
But to where?
Yes, I don't see an output, so I don't exactly know. And I don't know why it would have to be plugged into electrical power if it's not supplying it. But yeah, I mean, it does seem like it's optical in nature, right? It's got some kind of little thingy there that looks like maybe it's a sensor of some kind that's within this little porthole window, and maybe the gasket is just that you have to, line up its surface, kind of like we do with our colorimeters when we're calibrating a display. You put it on the display, and that's there as more of a light hood than anything else. That's not out of the realm of possibility, but it's clearly plugging into something, which usually means it's generating something, not just accepting something. It looks
like a laser emitter more than this beam splitter.
Except this definitely doesn't look like a typical laser emitter.
No,
so
I
don't know exactly what this is, Gary. You got me stumped too.
Yeah. Val Kilmer is the one in Real Genius. I love that movie, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe this is for making a house full of popcorn.
Right. But come to our Flickr album or watch on YouTube. If you look at that thing and you're like, oh, I know what that is, please let us know.
Let us know. We're
Gary
very
and
curious.
we would be curious to know exactly what it is.
Let's get on to the questions here. Julian, who is in England, jolly old UK. Julian has his home theater set up in his lounge, which we don't have those here in America. That's an English-only thing. It's approximately 12 by 15 feet, which he had to do a conversion of because he uses
although a lot of people in the UK are still pretty familiar with feet. So it's not as
they do use miles, so that's great because kilometers always really messed me up. Things came way too fast. When they were only a kilometer away, I was like, "Holy crap, it's here already!"
They are called imperial units, and the empire that's being referred to is the UK. So.
That's right. So it's approximately 12 by 15 feet with a fireplace on the right side, windows and the patio door on the front wall, and French doors into the lounge on the back wall. There's a couch up against the left wall and the love seat close to the back wall back wall facing straight ahead. Anyways, he's got a 65-inch TV on a stand that's situated sort of in the front right corner of the room. At this point, I don't know what's the front anymore because the front.
We're calling where the TV is the front. That's how I'm referring to it. So.
Okay, because to me, where the couch faces is the front, and it's to the
fireplace.
The fireplace would be in the front wall and in the left front.
I'm just doing it in terms of like where we say the front speakers are and where the TV is, and that's the windows and the patio door. That's the front of the theater.
Already having a couple of issues of speaker placement here, but we'll get to that. That's
exactly what we're getting to here.
If you're not looking at the picture, you might be thinking to yourself, "What could possibly go wrong?" A couple of things. I just clicked something and now everything's all messed up. All right.
Okay.
There's a couch up against the left wall and the love seat. Okay. A 65-inch TV is on a stand that's situated sort of in the front right corner of the room, so it's really facing straight on. It's not really facing straight onto any seats. In order to keep walkways and doors clear, the front left and right surround speaker are all positioned close to the four corners of the room, with the center speaker placed directly below the TV. On the first shelf of the TV stand. This is all very confusing, and I'm reading it and looking. You have to look at the pictures.
You can see the images.
Yes. So if we were talking about this room, you have to envision it as a diamond, okay, instead of a square.
Well, you could also just say it's a 12 by 15 room. There's a speaker in each corner, and then the TV, instead of being straight ahead and in the middle, in between the front left and right, is shifted over to the right and angled into the corner of the front right corner. That's really all that's happened here.
Yeah. All right. So he's using a Yamaha RX A3070 receiver to power KEF LS50 speakers for the front left, center right, and PMC GB1 towers for the surrounds. Oh, I see it now. And the pair of KEF T101 flat on-wall speakers as front heights. He also had, in any world where front heights would not be effective, this is it. He also has two subwoofers, one with one in the rear left corner and the other in the front right corner behind the TV stand. The KEF LS50 front speakers were bought on our recommendations. It was right around the time when the LS50 Metas were coming out, so we scored a deal on two of the first generation LS50s. So we can see in those photos, he's kept the spare LS50 in the TV stand along with his center LS50, but it isn't connected to anything. But he has been wondering, oh God. So the two speakers up front were messing me up to begin with. It looked I thought maybe that was the left speaker inside the speaker stand with the...
Nope.
But it is not. I see. So that's... Okay. Anyways. But he's been wondering. Where's the wondering? Oh, there it is. They do often have someone sitting on the love seat and then someone sitting on the couch. So the TV and the center speaker are not directly aimed at either. Instead, the TV and center split the difference and are aimed at the rear left corner of the room, in between the love seat and the couch. So could it maybe be a good idea to connect both LS50 center speakers and have one aimed directly at the love seat and the other aimed directly at the couch? He's familiar with the notion that two speakers playing the exact same sounds side by side can create sound wave interference and could therefore be more harm than good, but he has the option of physically separating them as much as the width of the TV stand will allow. It's not very far, and he could have them aiming in slightly different directions so they are directly facing the love seat and the couch. What do we think about it? I mean, I hate all of this. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
the real question I would ask first is anybody thinking as they're sitting there that the voices don't sound like they're coming from the TV, or that the voices are in some way subdued in comparison to the rest of the sounds that are coming out of these speakers that are at best haphazardly placed around this room? I mean, it's not. It's not.
It's simply because the TV is moved over to the right that it doesn't seem like a completely normal setup. That's really the only thing throwing things off here.
I so much want to move everything. in this room.
I mean, I would just move the TV. How often do you really use both of those patio doors? Because even if you move the TV to be centralized and just facing directly at the love seat instead of anywhere facing at the couch whatsoever, it's like you can still access that left patio door. That's not going to be blocked whatsoever.
So there's the way if you're not looking at the pictures, it's in a corner behind it. There are doors, but to the left of it, there are also doors. Right.
Well, no, it's just a window that's to the right side of that.
Is that what that
thing.
is?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a window.
The only doors are to the left of the TV.
I want this TV to move about 1.5 feet to the right, and the whole thing just to scooch over a little bit.
Oh, just be a corner setup.
Be a corner setup.
Gotcha.
Right. This is the left speaker is way too wide. Now I know that. And you still have access. Close the blinds behind that window. Does not exist. That window is a wall. Make the window a wall, right? And shove this thing into the corner, so that you can put all the speakers over there and have them face forward-ish. Now, yes, you would be losing stereo separation. There's no doubt about that. But are we really experiencing great stereo separation right now? The right speaker.
I mean, I'll say whoever is sitting in the sideways facing couch is not getting fantastic stereo imaging right now.
I would rather. And the right speaker, which is right next to the TV, is also, it looks like 2 to 2.5 feet behind the TV.
We're going to get to that. That is a written out question coming up.
Okay.
But for now we're talking about this idea of the center speaker and should he use both LS50s, because he bought 2 pairs because it was actually cheaper to buy 2 pairs than to buy 1 pair plus the single LS50 that is sold as a center. It's cheaper to just buy 2 pairs. So he's not going to throw out the second one, but he's like, well, should I hook it up? It's physically sitting there, and I could have one pointed, on axis to the couch seat and one on axis to the love seat. And would that be an improvement? Would that be any better?
I would doubt it. I mean, I don't know that it would necessarily hurt anything. It's since you've got them both sitting there, there's no reason not to try it, I suppose.
There's that. I mean, there is it's a no cost, although some time experiment of just giving it a try and seeing. But if ever there were a speaker where it doesn't matter tremendously that you be exactly on axis to it, it would be a concentric speaker where you can be substantially off axis and still have very close to the same on axis sound. And given that I'm making the assumption that one person is sitting with their left arm on the left armrest of the love seat and the other person is sitting with their right arm on the right armrest of the couch that's facing sideways, and it's like, you are well within the cone of dispersion if that is the seating scenario of the single LS50 center speaker. If time is a precious commodity in your life, I wouldn't even bother. I'd stick with the one of them. And if it's bothering you that you are seeing the second one all along, move it behind the glass, put it away in a box somewhere, or sell it and get some money back, because somebody out there is looking to buy a single LS50 somewhere.
Somebody wants one for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, if time is, like you said, if time is of the essence, or is valuable to you, or you don't really feel like doing it, or you need another amplifier or something, I don't know what it could possibly be. This is not worth the time to me, but since everything else is already so compromised, having 2 speakers up there isn't going to make the situation any less compromised. It's going to there's just going to be more sound bouncing around this room. Yeah. So if we were to connect 2 center LS50 speakers, how should he wire them to his Yamaha receiver in parallel or in series? The A3070 has an option of bi-amping the front, left, and right speakers, but not the center, because nobody does that except for that new new
3900H.
And it's stupid.
Because you can tell somebody asked about it.
Yeah, you can wire them both in... which is the right one? Series?
Well, I mean, series is the safest. Series is going to mean that the combined impedance goes up. Right. Whereas if you wire them in parallel, it would mean that the combined impedance goes down.
And you are sitting pretty far away, so I would not want the impedance to go down. Yeah. Yeah,
the safe thing to do would be to wire them in series. So I don't really think this is worth your time doing, but if you were to do it, it would mean that the right binding post of the Yamaha goes to the red binding post of the Yamaha goes to the red binding post of speaker number 1, and then the black binding post of the Yamaha goes to the black binding post of speaker number 2. And then you just connect the black of speaker number 1 to the red of speaker number 2 directly. That is the series wiring. So that's the way that you could do it if you insist upon doing it, but I really think you should just stick with the single LS50 setup.
Yeah. So as we can see in this photo, the front right speaker is somewhat behind the TV stand, so it's partially blocked from having a direct line of sight to the couch along the left wall, so he tends to pull the right front speaker forward. Do we agree that this is the correct thing to do? I mean, yes. I don't know why that's a question, but yes. I would...
well, because now it will no longer be symmetrical in the room if the front left speaker is not moving from its position in the front left corner of...
So you've placed the speakers based on where they are in relation to the walls and everything, basically,
and
which
more
is
or
not
less
how I would
in
do
relation
this.
to the love seat. You know, the left seat of the love seat would be the primary seat with the way the speakers are currently positioned, because it also looks as though your left surround speaker is in the rear left corner of the room entirely. It's actually to the right of everybody sitting on the couch. That's where the left surround speaker is at the moment.
Yeah. So I see what you've done. I understand it, I guess, but I don't like it. Okay.
I mean, if the seating is stuck where it is, and
which is fine,
you are frequently going to have somebody sitting on the couch and somebody sitting on the love seat. I mean, I do agree with Tom's suggestion that what you really need is a corner-centric setup. You know, the TV is in the corner, and that would mean necessarily that the front left speaker moves over. It's on a stand. It's clearly on a speaker stand. Yeah. It will be standing at least partially in front of the right half of the patio door. There's not much way that it's not going to be at least partially in front of that. But then, yes, you would pull the front right speaker forward. I mean, it's all going to be a corner setup. Then you could actually kind of shift the surround left speaker, which, like I say, is to the right of everybody sitting on the couch. That could shift over to practically be where the front left speaker is now, and then the surround right speaker would remain in the rear right corner of the room. And now everybody, at least all the speakers are positioned to the left and right of all the viewers where they ought to be, and it is now a corner-centric setup. Yeah.
So he needs a longer speaker wire in order to move the front right speaker. He was just going to get Amazon Basics 14 gauge wire. Any reason that would be a bad choice? Nope. Other than the fact that it doesn't always lay as flat as you want it to and all of that. But if you don't care about that, then
it's pretty decent. I got absolutely no problem with that speaker wire. It was totally up to this task.
Chris. First up, Chris wanted to commiserate with me regarding my son taking a gamble on professional gambling. When Chris was growing up, he had it impressed upon him that he needed to get a real job as quickly as possible, and he accidentally wound up in a career that has paid the bills, but he's never found it exciting or fun. Had he heard different advice growing up, the trajectory of his life might have been different. So as a father, he has told his son to work the job that you want to work, at least until you have the job that you have to work the job that you have to work.
So work the job you want to work until you have to work the job you have to work.
Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe your fun and exciting job will work out. Maybe it won't, but at least give it a try before settling. That's his thinking anyway. Did we leave it with my son was going to be a professional gambler?
Yeah, that's the last I heard.
That's what we left
I was going to ask, but I knew this question was coming up, so I figured we could talk about it now.
That lasted a week.
Okay.
And then he was like, this, and this happens in the audio world as well. Mm-hmm. People will write 50,000 word reviews and post them on audio forums all over the internet for free.
Yep, absolutely.
Because they love for the love of the game, because they love the feedback they're getting. They love all of that. They are self-motivated to do this, and they get their dopamine hit from the people in the forums telling them how great they are. Okay, believe me, I've got no problems with this. The minute that you say, hey, you've done a great job here, we would like to send you a product to review for our website or whatever, they will say, yes, I'm super interested in doing this. This is what I've always wanted to do. I'm really passionate about it. You send them the product, and then suddenly they have no motivation left anymore, and they fall off the face of the earth. And this has happened here on this podcast as well. It's
not necessarily a lack of motivation. There can be other emotional and psychological parts to it as well. Also, that's me. You're describing.
Yes. Yes. So the minute you make it into work,
Yep.
it stops being fun. Okay.
Yeah.
So my son went for a week-long trip to Jacksonville, which apparently has a very good card room, and they played probably 60 to 80 hours of poker in that week.
Sure.
And my son came back and said, "I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. This is not fun. I don't like it." Like he hasn't played poker since then. Like he came back and was like, "I am done." Now it does not that he doesn't want to play poker. His friends are still doing it as a job.
Yep.
He's just out of that. He'll still, I'm sure, go out and play poker some more.
But at some point he'll play it for fun again. But he is done with it being a profession as of this time. Yeah. Okay.
So, my wife, who was very concerned about this whole thing, I was like, just let it go. Just let them try it. And then if it works out, it works out. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And I was fairly convinced that he was going to go try it, and then that was going to be, he was just going to give up because it takes the fun out of it. So yes, that is what happened with my son.
Being a professional gambler is a grind. It is a grind.
Well, they call it that. They call themselves being on the grind. Oh, I'm on the grind right now. And you think, oh, you don't really know that that's a literal how it feels sort of situation. They are just grinding out all day long, 13-hour days of playing poker. I couldn't do it.
And it takes a tremendous amount of discipline to not get in trouble doing it, which, like I said, on the one hand, it's in many ways more up to you than a lot of other jobs. You don't have a boss hovering over you, but that also means you don't have that style of motivation. It's all on you. And so, look, my honest biggest fear when you described all of that was it is very common. And yes, the way that you can make a living of it, it is very difficult to do it as a true lone wolf. You do need partners to work with if you're going to be a professional gambler, not just for poker, for any form of professional gambling. Yes. You really do need partners. But you have to have a tremendous amount of trust because the number of stories of one of the partners absconded with the money from the other partners. There are many, many tales of that, and that was my biggest worry because that can ruin friendships, if not ruin lives entirely. So that was a big concern of mine. But yes, he tried it for a week. I mean, good on him. Good on him. Yeah. Good on you for letting him try it for a week. And
he came back and he was like, "Oh, I'm not doing this anymore." And also, one of the companies that I had interviewed with a couple of weeks ago contacted me and wants to do another interview. Yeah. And when that came through, I mean, that was a job that we're waiting to fully materialize. So that was on the Monday that he came back. Last Wednesday, he was supposed to get a call from them. They didn't call. So over the weekend, he sent an email and they responded back saying, "Hey, this is taking longer than we expect. We're trying to line everything up. We'll let you know." Yeah. So hopefully they'll come through.
Absolutely. Yes,
soon.
Fingers crossed. So, and I will just say in response to what Chris said as sort of life advice on that side, not that I disagree with it, and I definitely think it's worth giving things a try. But you'll very frequently hear the whole thing, oh, if you just do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. I don't entirely agree based on pure experience. I don't entirely agree with that sentiment. But the other thing is, there is nothing wrong if for you, there's plenty of people where that is true and it's great for them, but if for you, having work be work and having your hobbies be your hobbies and having your family be your, having things separated, having a little bit of a gap, a little bit of an air gap between those things is also not wrong. And if that makes you a more comfortable life to do that, and that has turned out to be for me. And I didn't know that when I was 18. Mm-hmm. That is through life experience where I'm like, I like that the job that I have, I get to leave it at work. I do my work. I come home from work. I don't consider work fun necessarily, although I like a lot of the people that I work with, so it's by no means a bad part of my life, but work is work, and then it's done, and I'm not thinking about it anymore. I can do other things, and for me, that works. For not everybody, but it's okay. I could
do an entire 2-hour or plus podcast on this topic alone. So, because I've been working for myself essentially on and off in different forms for over 20 years now, and there is something to say, like you guys know, I work, part-time-ish, maybe a little bit less than whatever is considered legally part-time at a bike shop. And there is something to be said for, I almost never get emails or text messages or anything saying, hey, what's going on with this? Can you can you do this? Can you tell me what this is? Almost never, because when I leave, it stays there, right? Yep. And there's also something to be said for a job where at the end of it, you can point at the thing you did and say, I did it.
Yep.
Writing audio stuff is the same in a sense, in that you can point at it and say, hey, I did that review. Here's my review. And I can point at it and say it doesn't feel as tangible as I worked on a car, or I made a bridge, or I did whatever. My wife's an engineer. She's been a civil engineer, been doing it her whole life. We can go over bridges that she's worked on, and she's like, I helped with the pilings on this. Doesn't feel quite as concrete, even though it is made of concrete, as me saying, hey, look at this pile of parts, and now look at this bike I have put together from here. It's a different thing. So yes, having your work be your work, I think it has some advantages. But when they say, oh, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Part of the joy of work is complaining about work. You have to be able to complain about it. Because yeah, I mean, even fun is something we complain about, right? Like if you're in the middle of a workout, you're like, oh, this sucks. I'm suffering here and stuff like that. You complain in the midst of doing the thing that not only are you doing voluntarily, you are paying to do it in some form. And sometimes very, very concretely, like I pay to come to this gym and have this person who I also pay yell at me because I'm not doing things hard enough. This is fun for people, and being able to complain about it, having the idea in your head that the real work that you should be doing should just do nothing but give you joy is ludicrous. You'll never achieve that. You'll never achieve it. People who go around and do nothing but talk about, who are like public speakers, right? They also complain. They have to do nothing but give their opinion on things, and people just listen to them. And they go on podcasts and news. That's all they do. And they occasionally write a book by having somebody else write a book for them. And that's. I cannot think of a job that's easier or more. I mean, you don't have to prepare. You just wake up and do it. Like, here's my opinion on these things. Like, I want to be a futurist. Oh my God.
Do you?
What's your job? I just think about how the future might be, and then I tell people about it. How is that a job? How could you not have a good time doing that?
I would feel like a fraud, and that would be a problem. But
yeah, that's right.
We have gone far
let's
afield.
go back to Chris. Yes.
Back to Chris.
Chris says Chris says some speaker manufacturers proudly claim that their speakers have a signature sound, and indeed some speakers do seem to be recognizable with a genuinely different sound versus other speakers, even in blind listening comparison. Especially in blind listening comparisons. So how does that jibe or jive? I always thought it was jive.
I mean, jibe is the word when you're talking about two things working together in harmony. Yes.
I would have to look that up. Thank you, Rob. Jibe with there being room correction and a target curve. Wouldn't it be the case that no matter what signature sound your speakers output by default, your room correction is going to do its best to change that to match its target curve? Yes.
Well,
it's true.
Only if it's full range. So we'll get about that. Get into that. After
so it seems like the general goal with room correction is to end up with a sound that closely matches what a perfectly anechoically neutral speaker would sound like in a typically reflective, meaning not too reverberant, but also not too absorptive room. We can, of course, manually change the target curve to our own personal liking, but does that mean that we would somehow know what the curve in a room, not an echo chamber, of the given speaker's signature sound is beforehand? Do speaker manufacturers with a signature sound feel like that buyers want something other than directly faithfully back of whatever came from the recording? He's just trying to square up in his head how all this lines up so we can discuss it. So can we discuss it and help him figure it out? Okay. So there's a couple of things that are going on here. Like Rob alluded to earlier, room correction is not a panacea. It doesn't magically make every single speed. It only has so much fidelity and only affects things in certain ways in certain room within the confines of playback. It doesn't have the ability to magically make every speaker sound exactly the same. But let's talk about signature sound.
Okay.
There's, in my mind, there's two different types of speaker manufacturers that are going for a signature sound. There's one that is targeting the audiophile crowd. Okay. They know that their speakers may never even be in the same room with room correction. Like it may never exist within the realm of their. So you are buying the speaker with this signature sound because of that signature sound. And not only that, you're buying the speaker because it is designed to interact well with the type of components that you have in your system, right? You have an extremely efficient speaker because you've made this because you know that your type of customer, which is usually based off of you, likes to connect it to a a tube amplifier that puts out 3 watts. So you need an extremely efficient speaker for that reason. That, by definition, will give it a signature sound because of the limitations you put on it for being able to. It has to only be able to interact with this type of amplifier and still create a sound that people want. The other type of signature sound that people, that I think speaker manufacturers go for, is they are thinking to themselves, I need people to buy my speaker. So how do I make this happen? Well, I need that when they are in a room and there's at the Best Buy Magnolia, and there's a bunch of speakers next to each other, I want my speaker to stand out.
Yes.
In some way, so
Stand
that
out from the
people
crowd.
will take it home.
Yeah.
So this might be Klipsch with their very bright sound that at first blush you're like, man, this sounds so detailed and so and so much better than the speakers that are right now. Maybe just flat out louder because they're more sensitive.
I heard things that I didn't hear before effect.
Or they may be going for the low end. You notice the mid-range very rarely comes up in these conversations. the low end, like this speaker has so much more bass than all the rest of the speakers.
Yes,
never mind, I'm going to end up pairing it with a subwoofer or 2 subwoofers.
Some people don't.
Ideally. So therefore that doesn't matter. But people will still put the speakers side by side and go, well, this one sounds better. Well, it sounds better because it has more bass, but the more bass is below 80 hertz, so it doesn't make any difference anyways. So those are the 2 types of signature sounds that people are kind of going for. One is for the audiophile crowd and has to do with selling them a speaker that works well with their gear and therefore has a signature sound, or has a signature sound that they can kind of brag about and then talk to you about in their stupid little audio rooms. And then
I'll also add a third, which is there are the speakers where they have never taken a measurement, they never will, and it really is like there is a designer at this company, maybe they're the founder of the company or maybe they're just the lead designer, but it's like they sit and they listen and they tweak and they listen and they tune it to their taste. And they're like, this is what it should sound like, and that's our signature sound, and we hope you like it, and if you like what I like, you're going to like my speakers.
And if your room is exactly the same as my room, because that's what they're hearing more of.
Maybe not, but like that is definitely one way that some speaker companies arrive at a signature sound. Yeah,
you're not wrong. I think that's still in the audiophile realm, right? We're still talking about the audiophile realm.
And they'll also be the ones where if they do have marketing, they'll talk about the artistry more than they'll talk about the science. And that's okay. You're allowed to go along with that. But yeah, the main thing when we're coming to room correction, so, if we hearken back to the advice from Dr. Floyd Toole, his advice has been room correction should be room correction. It should not be speaker correction. Because, there is speaker correction. You can go in there with a DSP and an EQ, and you can alter the frequency response that is coming out of your speaker. Sometimes completely intentionally, where it's like, we have every single driver in this speaker has its own independent amplifier, and there is a digital crossover in between that we can tune, and we can brute force make this speaker produce the frequency response that we want it to produce, and that is speaker correction. But Dr. Floyd Toole's approach was there is a transition frequency in any room. In a larger room, it's going to be at a lower frequency. In a smaller room, it's going to be at a higher frequency. But there is a point where the speaker loses the ability to dictate what you hear, and the room takes over. And so he was in favor and espouses the view that we probably should try to correct that, because we're designing and measuring, and in the case of his approach, using an anechoic chamber and just getting the response of the speaker all by itself without the effects of the room. And he's like, you bring that into a room, and largely for the mid-range and treble, you're still hearing more of the direct sound than you are of the reflected sounds. You're definitely hearing reflected sound, much more than in an anechoic chamber where there isn't any, but the ratio is we're still hearing more of the direct sound than we are of the reflected sound in the higher frequencies. But you get to the transition frequency, and now we're really only hearing reflected sound. We're not hearing direct sound at all anymore. And so how do you design a speaker that is going to work for any room that it might be placed in? Well, you can't. You simply can't. You're going to have to make some changes after putting the speaker into the room to correct for the effects of the room, and that's why we call it room correction, not speaker correction. And so, that approach, if you're following that advice, and it's certainly reasonable advice to follow, is I bought a speaker because I like its signature sound. Hopefully that signature sound is in the mid-range and treble, because if it's only in the bass below the transition frequency of the room, well then now you're at the mercy of the room. But if the signature sound is in the higher frequencies, well, we retain all that. We don't change that. We don't correct the speaker. The speaker plays the way the speaker plays. But there is a point where it all becomes reflected sound. It's all up to the room, and let's correct that. So it's like, below 500 hertz. Maybe it's below 250 hertz. It's lower frequencies only. So that is one way where you wouldn't be changing the signature sound if the signature sound is in the mid-range and treble. So the other part of Chris, it was Chris we're talking to, right? The other part of Chris's question was, okay, so let's say that is the case. We have the signature sound. Let's say we're following Dr. Floyd Toole's advice and we're not correcting the speaker. We are just correcting the part that's entirely because of the room that we put the speaker into. Is that manufacturer saying, well, we're not even aiming to just give you a flat line response in an anechoic chamber, signal in equals signal out. We are intentionally making alterations to the signal that came in so that what comes out is our signature sound. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. They're not claiming that they are a pass-through for the electrical signal where it is purely signal in, signal out. They're saying, okay, we don't listen to an electrical sine wave. We listen to something that went through a transducer and translated it from electrical impulses to physical movement. And we think, for whatever reason, that when you do listen back to these speakers, we don't just want signal in, signal out. We want trumpets to be particularly prominent. We want really high sounds to either stand out more or recess more so that they're not so harsh on the ears. Like whatever it is. Again, that really is personal preference. Yeah. And then you could,
and also hearing ability. That
definitely
that certainly comes into play.
And then you could get into the realm of speaker correction, not room correction, where you're like, well, I bought this speaker and I don't particularly like the way its mid-range and treble sounds. I'm going to start to equalize that portion of it to make it sound the way I want it to sound. And maybe that is equal to the way an anechoically flat speaker would play in this room. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's entirely my preference. Maybe I always have trouble hearing high frequency detail, so I'm gonna boost those high frequencies more than is anechoically flat. But to me, it sounds better. So yeah, I think that's where all of that comes from.
All right. Leighton, so we were returned to Leighton's heavily treated small enclosed home theater. He does not have updated photos to share just yet, but he has made changes and he's taken some new measurements of his front, left, and right speakers to help identify any differences. So some reminder photos of what this room looked like before. This is the one where he's got enough room treatments to make me jealous.
Indeed.
So, in terms of changes, this is what he wound up doing. He took down the 8-inch thick bass straps that were high up on his side walls, straddling that top edge with the ceiling, which was something I suggested. He also took the diffusers down from the ceiling, but he still has a couple of absorption panels up there on the ceiling's first reflection points. He took down a couple of 2x4x4 inch thick panels on his front wall behind his front left and right speakers, but he replaced them with 1x4x8 thick combo panels that he already had previously ordered from GEC. So there's 1 foot by 4 foot, so they're like thin little ones.
They're thin,
but they're 8-inch, but they're 8-inch thick. So they're
and combo panels.
chunky. That does expose some more of the front wall surface, though, and it puts combo panels behind his front left and right speakers, which is something Rob suggested. Amazingly, he still has even and uniform decay times, but the room is just a little bit more reverberant overall. His bass still sounds good, but not booming, which was his biggest fear about taking down some panels. So overall, he's happy with the change. But now he'd like to ask about an audible issue that he noticed all along, no matter what the acoustic panel situation has been. He knows that all three of his front Perion Veris Grand 3 speakers, left, center, and right, seem to have a bit of cupped hands sound to vocals. Isn't just him. So whenever somebody writes an article for me and they mention their family members, I take it out of their article. It's like the one edit I will always do.
Okay.
Do not ever tell me about what your wife heard.
One reason I think this is valid is because if it were truly only him, he'd probably be just sitting in the main seat all the time. Yeah. And there's there's other people are here in the room. They're sitting in other seats. So
anyways, it isn't just him. His wife and daughter have also commented their voices sound a little bit strange, as if the person singing or talking has their hands up on either side of their mouth. It affects all three front speakers, can be noticed in the seats, in all the seats of the couch, and by all members of his family. So he's pretty sure it isn't just a case of needing to get used to the sound of the room anymore. And they were noticing this issue with his old acoustic panel setup, as well as a new setup with some of the panels taken down. So now, we've got his new measurements, and they're just of the front left and right speakers and just from one microphone position. But like he says, his cupped hands sound is present across all seats from all three front speakers and noticed by all listeners. His understanding is that the cupped hands sound is typically due to having some resonance just below 1,000 hertz, and that can show up in either the frequency response, the decay time graphs, or both. But he isn't seen in his graphs, do we? Can we explain the cause? And more importantly, what can he do about it so that the voices from his front three speakers will finally sound natural and not cupped? So we're looking at these graphs.
So we're going to go back
here.
to some comparisons here. We're going to have first was the original. So this was front, left, and right playing along with his pair of subwoofers. These were the original measurements going back a ways. And so it's just so we can have these in mind, trying to suss out what could be showing up either in the frequency response or we've got waterfall decay graphs. The original ones where the decay times from the highest treble down to, I'd say 60 hertz was like all below about 80 milliseconds. Very, very, very low decay times when he was measuring those. And now we've got these new frequency response measurements. And to be perfectly honest, they're actually ever so slightly more linear, like ever so slightly less up and down in the frequency response after actually having removed some acoustic panels. But then we go over to the waterfall graphs from the new setup, and I'm not saying a big change. I got to be honest.
No,
he says the room is a little
huge.
bit more reverberant, but maybe we've creeped up to 85 milliseconds instead of 80 milliseconds. But this is barely a change. There are a couple of little frequency spots in here, but we're not seeing. So what we're driving at is we're not seeing an obvious reverberation that's going on in the vocal region anywhere in here. It's like these are very low decay times. There is no particular range of frequencies or even a single frequency that's like ringing out and reverberating and causing the cupped hands type of sound. So maybe we should just talk a little bit about what can cause that cupped hands effect, right? Because we got several subjective things that anybody can describe, right? We'll say, like, you can listen to someone talking to you, and it's like, it's the whole thing of we recognize the person's voice. Maybe we're even hearing them over a phone or something, or with our eyes closed, and we're like, you sound like you're in a tile bathroom, right? Okay. Or you sound like you're in a padded room, or you sound like you have your hands cupped around your mouth, or you sound like you're in the biggest open field that you could possibly be in. Like, subjectively, we recognize those types of sounds. It's not as though it changes the person's voice to the degree that we can't recognize who's speaking anymore, but we can definitely like give a description of it sounds like you're in this type of scenario or that you've done this type of thing around your mouth. But then we try to get to an objective, measurable Why? Why does it sound like that? Why do we recognize things as sounding like that? So I don't know, Tom, did you want to take over for a second and talk about the cause for cupped hands?
No.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm carrying on then.
Carry on.
Because it's a little bit tricky, right? We have to think through the scenario that's going on here. What is actually taking place to the sound waves that are coming out of my mouth when I cup my hands around my mouth? Why does it sound different? So one thing that we know is that higher frequencies are just naturally more directional. If you could separate out whether I had my hands open or my hands cupped around my mouth, if you could just put in a high-pass filter, you would be able to slide that high-pass filter frequency up and down, and there'd be a point where, well, above this, in the higher frequency range, the sound doesn't really change. The sound is about the same in the higher frequencies, whether I have my hands cupped around my mouth or not. So it is in a somewhat lower frequency range, a little bit part of the lower register of my voice, where it becomes evident whether I have my hands cupped around my mouth or I don't. So we know instinctively that we're putting our hands around our mouth, a bit like a passive megaphone, which means that sound that used to be traveling out to the sides is now reflecting off the surfaces of my hand and being directed a little bit more forward than it used to. We've changed the directivity of the sound, but it is frequency dependent. Like I say, the higher frequencies don't really change. It's a little bit in the lower frequencies. So this is why, if just a speaker all on its own, you might have seen this described on Aaron's Audio Corner, where he's looking at his Klippel measurements, which are calculating an anechoic response without actually physically having to have an anechoic chamber, but it does a very, very good job of it. And he's saying if the speaker all by itself, doesn't matter what room you put this speaker into, every room you put this speaker into, it sounds like it has a bit of a cupped hands sound coming from the speaker no matter what. That virtually always means there is a resonance in that speaker.
Yeah.
And it means that in that frequency range, that starts to become more directional as I cup my hands around my mouth, and you gain more reflections that way, when we're talking about actual hands around a human mouth. But if the speaker just always sounds like that no matter what, there's virtually always a resonance from the speaker itself. And that'll show up in frequency response measurements as an obvious kind of hump in the response. And it'll show up in the decay time measurements. No matter what room you put it in, you'll see a resonance. And it's very often the cabinet itself, right? Yeah. More than the drivers, more than even if one of the tweeter is inside a horn. It's going to be the cabinet is resonating, and we'll say, hey, you need to put more bracing and you need to put more damping inside the cabinet of the speaker, and you can get rid of that sound. Now, the Hyperion Various Grand speakers, we don't know them to by default have that issue, and we're not seeing a resonance that's showing up in the measurements inside of your room. So what else could it be? We come back to the actual, I'm putting my hands around my mouth. It's changing the directivity of some of those sounds. It's saying I am getting less of the wide open sound went out to the sides and behind my head, and that sound is now being directed more forward. And to just put it in even more simple terms to where I can say this could be something to do with your room and your setup and your acoustic treatments, we have changed the ratio. We have changed the ratio of direct sound to reflected sound. We have increased the amount of direct sound at those certain frequencies and decreased the amount of reflected sound at those certain frequencies. And that leads me to say there is something you can try for free. It might be those sidewall panels.
He's just going to have a stack of panels sitting outside of his room, just on the ground. Like from floor to ceiling, just panels that he's not using anymore. So this is the danger that we run into when we're in fact, we kind of talked about this when the last question we talked about speaker sounds, people who are going for one type of speaker sound. Like if you overcorrect or you correct for one thing so completely, there's going to be unintended consequences. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to design a speaker who you just want to make sure that it can operate with, get to a reasonable volume level, a reasonable distance with only 3 or 4 watts of power total, that speaker is going to have some other things that are going to happen to it that you won't be able to fix because it is incompatible with your initial thing that you're doing. Here, you're like, I am so worried about decay times and bass in my room, and making sure the bass is as good as it can be, that I'm going to do all the things I can do to make sure that the bass is as good as it can be. And then here we are, and we're like, oh no, your treble's a little screwed up.
Oh, it's not even treble in this case. It's like it's the resonant part of the voice. It's like the 800 hertz type of frequency.
I would argue that the treble, in fact, is screwed up, but that it is most noticeable in the voices because everyone knows what a voice should sound like.
Yes, exactly.
Like, not everybody can listen to a flute and go, well, that flute doesn't sound right.
Or a sine wave sweep.
Yes, exactly. So my argument here would be this is a symptom of the larger problem, which we have been already kind of addressing in here, which is like there's no way that this room doesn't sound weird. But maybe it sounds weird good. And it does sound weird good in the bass. It probably sounds weird amazing in the bass, like insanely good in the bass. Whereas, but it sounds so good in the bass that it's by default messing up other things. So, you might say, well, how can I fix this and still maintain this great bass? There is going to be a trade-off. There is going to be. You're going to have to. First of all, you made a bunch of changes, and in your. If you look at the graphs, we're like, I don't know, it looks kind of the same. It does kind of it looks like you can still make more changes before things get what you would classify as bad.
I'm not even going to say that 100% for sure that is going to fix the issue and that 100% for sure you're going to prefer it. But I'm just saying that is a simple, inexpensive experiment that you can try to see if it is the case. The what's coming out of the tweeter from those speakers to the listeners on that couch, those sidewall panels are doing nothing to that. Your speakers are even slightly towed in at the front. The listeners are inches away from those front speakers at some point. You're getting all direct sound as far as the tweeter. So those side panels are not affecting that, just like cupping my hands around my mouth doesn't really affect the high treble, what would come out of a tweeter. It's really only the mid-range and below that 1,000 hertz range where something's happening. It's like, those we didn't say to take down those sidewall panels right away because your room is not perfectly symmetrical. You've got, door and wall on one side, window on the other. But if what you're hearing are voices sound a little bit strange, it's like, well, your brain is very good at mixing in typical sidewall reflections, even if they're not perfectly symmetrical. What your brain isn't great at is, what's coming off that sidewall is definitely different from a regular reflection. There is definitely less mid-range frequency energy coming from those side walls. Sounds a little bit strange, like it sounds a little unnatural. It doesn't sound, I can't tell what that person is saying, but it doesn't sound like a natural voice in a natural room. And I think people are picking up on that. That's a fairly easy experiment to try. The explanation actually does make reasonable sense.
It's like the most unique question I think we maybe have ever had. Not this specific one, but this whole situation. It's so uncommon to have somebody who has over-treated their room to the point where things have gotten weird. Most of the time we're like, you could probably throw a couple more in there. It wouldn't hurt anything. And people are like, well, I think I put way too many. And you're like, no. This man has actually done it. You've actually done it, which is amazing. And you should be proud of yourself for being so dedicated to bass. We definitely
have the people who are literally fighting to get one panel.
One panel somewhere in their room. And we're like, please put it behind your head. Just do something so you can get rid of that slap echo. Wow. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah. That's pretty cool. I hate to think that at the end of this, you really will have a stack of panels and nothing to do with them.
He'll be able to find buyers.
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
And I would be like, hey, we can repurpose these around the house. Like I in my kids' rooms and stuff like that. Like we had people over for dinner. I told you because of my wife wanted to, and we wanted to motivate ourselves to finish our living room. And they noticed because we had a bookshelf up, stuff like that. Like it's not as echoing in the two more couches and a big rug. It's not as echoey as it. I'm like, it's still pretty echoey, but just throwing a little bit of stuff around, you'd be surprised how much difference it makes. So, spending a little money on some new fabric, or maybe repurposing the insulation that's inside the panels that you have, and then having it match the rooms, the different rooms and stuff, and just hiding them over in like on the wall someplace or whatever can make a big difference in the rest of your house. So don't think that these are only for home theater.
You know what I'm tempted to suggest? Because I just get the feeling that he's like a little bit uncomfortable with not having surfaces treated.
Yeah.
Like it could be a purely psychological thing, but I just get the feeling. I'm like, so you took down the diffusion panels from your ceiling. If you put those on your side wall, acoustically they'll do next to nothing, but it's like you'll know that they're there, and it's like, oh, I put diffusion at my first reflection points. We know that in effect they're doing nothing, but like that's kind of what we want in this case. We kind of want the sidewalls to do nothing in this case, and it's like that might be the solution here. That makes you feel real good, and it lets you reuse panels you already own.
Sure, I'm okay with that. I'm also okay with you. If you're like, I really want, I like the idea of having all these panels and things around me. We are stupid. We, as a human race, are dumb and easily tricked, even by ourselves.
Yes.
So what you can do is say to yourself, at the end of this, I'm going to fabric cover this entire room.
Okay.
All these walls are going to be fabric covered by the end, and I won't be able to see the panels that are back there. And in my mind, I'll be able to envision however many panels that there needs to be in order for my brain to think that this and great. And that's that's another thing you can do as well. Is just sort of trick yourself, because we are easily tricked by our own selves. Yep. We can do that very easily. Mase wants to buy a pair of speakers that he'll be able to use out on his fully covered deck, along with his 85-inch Hisense QD75N TV. But he also wants to be able to take one of them to his kids' sporting events, and he doesn't want to spend too much. That seems easy. So he found a party speaker from Walmart, Walmart's in-house ONN brand. They sell for $110 each, and they seem like maybe they'll do the trick. But what do we think? Do we have any alternate suggestions that we think would be better without costing him way more? What? Oh, I see. This is like a DJ, it's
a party speaker.
It's got the
RGB lighting that goes on there. Yeah. It's I believe this one does have a battery in it, a couple of big old drivers, whole bunch of thumping bass, and it's got a little handle. You can wheel it around, and there you go, party speaker.
Big old knob on the top.
I don't know if JBL started this, but they certainly popularized it.
Yeah,
the
they certainly did. That's
but they cost a whole lot more than $110 each to go from the JBL ones. So, I have an alternate suggestion. There is one drawback that I'll highlight. But in terms of ones that actually don't sound like nothing but thumping bass, I would point you to Klipsch's Gig XXL, which normally sells for $100 each, but they're on sale at Best Buy for $80 each right now, so definitely not breaking the bank. This Klipsch Gig, despite the name XXL, is actually not as physically large as this on speaker. You don't particularly need wheels to take this around. Those are two 6.5-inch drivers in the Klipsch, whereas it looks like, a couple of 10 inchers in the on speaker one. But the Klipsch, which has actually been measured and reviewed, has decent frequency response. It has tipped up bass, as you would expect from any party speaker, but it is not bass only, as many of these inexpensive party speakers are. I know that there's a fairly high star rating for the on one, and I don't know. I haven't actually heard it. But yeah, any of the cheap party speakers that I have ever heard, I'm like, well, that's a whole lot of bass and nothing else. The Klipsch one actually has reasonably okay frequency response coming out of it, and certainly not breaking the bank. So the plus side of this one is the Klipsch can actually be used as a stereo pair if you buy two of them. There is a wireless using Bluetooth between the two speakers, but it actually sets them up as a stereo pair where you can connect the regular left and right analog inputs. On the Klipsch, it's a 3.5 millimeter stereo jack that's on the back of it, but there's no reason you can't take red and white outputs or even the headphone jack output from your TV to a 3.5 stereo cable. And you only have to plug it into one of the Klipsch speakers, and then it wirelessly sends the other channel over to the other Klipsch speaker, and there's an actual procedure in the manual to set them up as a stereo pair. You can't do that with the on. You can have the two on speakers playing the same thing, but you don't actually get stereo. You just get mono. You get two speakers playing the same thing. The Klipsch can actually be set up as a stereo pair. So that's a feature of it. The downside is the Klipsch is not given an IP rating for Dust and Water, and you said you do want to take it to like soccer games or something like that, and
right.
those aren't necessarily always dry, and so I am a little bit worried about that with the Klipsch. That is the major drawback, is that they don't have an IP rating. Now, it's just a plastic case. If it's not actually raining out, then I don't think I'd be super worried about it. On a covered patio, I'd feel perfectly fine with it, but that could be a drawback. But yeah, just in terms of sound quality for the price, I would point you to the Klipsch Gig XXL. But if you want to give the On one a try and you're happy with it, I don't have a problem with that. I just expect it's going to be a whole lot of thumping bass and nothing else.
Right. Yeah. Whatever. It's fine. Yeah. I understand the idea of wanting to have a stereo pair out there. I feel like just buying one speaker and plugging it into your TV is probably all.
Could do.
Why complicate this? Why buy two and have one? I think what's going to end up happening is you're going to have two, and then one's going to break for whatever reason, and then you're going to have one, and you're not going to replace it. I think that's what's going to happen. So just buy one is what I would do, but that's just me. Andrew is in need of a suggestion for a new pair of noise-canceling earbuds. He's been using a pair of Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra earbuds, first generation, and they've been fine, but their charging case has stopped working on him, and Bose has been no help at all at getting a replacement or a repair, so now I'd like to try something different. He's in Canada, so he preferred to keep the price under $200. He wants to use the noise-canceling earbuds while working out and doing yard work and other chores. Also, this isn't a deal breaker, but he's got a bunch of Canadian Tire Triangle rewards points saved up. So if you can buy them from Canadian Tire or Sport Check, I have no idea what any of these things are.
These are Canadian retail brands, as you can tell. Canadian Tire and then Sport Check is also part of the same company.
Yeah, so much the better. So what do we recommend? So I just reviewed on AV Gadgets the Earfun Air Pro 4 wireless earbuds. So and I let me look real quick because I think I just opened this up. They are around $75, or I think they're $99 retail, but I found them for $75, like without trying. So I don't know what that would be in Canada or whatever, but those are for the most part, like, I don't know what your experience has been with noise canceling. So there's two main problems with noise canceling that I experience on the regular. And these are as good as any I've tried. So let's just start with that. But the problem that you can many times run into is wind. Okay, so many times wind can be an issue. So even the wind starts to whistle, and the noise canceling can't really keep up with it, and it just ends up like creating like a high pitched noise in your ears. So a lot of newer earbuds, specifically Soundcore, will have a switch that's like specific, like within their app, which is like a wind, wind cancellation or something like that in order to combat that. The other thing I find that they have a problem with is, I don't know what you guys call them, edge trimmers or weed whackers or whatever, but it's like a string trimmer. Oftentimes that high pitched noise that will come in and out as you hit things with it, as you're doing it can't keep up with that, and that gives you like sort of a staticky noise in your ears. I have never found one pair of earbuds that does both those things super well, or even either of them. Many times it's just like, hey, we do good with droning noises. Whatever the drone is, they all do well with it. And I'm sure that some are like the best, but I have a hard time really believing that any of them are significantly better as a whole. They all have some downfalls in them. I think as overall they're doing better. The new Earfun ones, they have an AI sort of thing that's supposed to be going on with like translation, and they translate things that are people are talking, and then like a voice will come in your ear and do like this actual language translation, which is free for now, but maybe will cost something in the future, sort of thing. Subscription model, which I wasn't super happy about, but I tried it with my wife, and she speaks multiple languages, so it worked okay. there was a delay between
Sure.
like it translating and the voice coming in your ear. So you could look at your phone and read it faster than the thing comes. So I'm like, I don't know if this is any better than the Google Translate that I would have normally used. But it's gimmicky and interesting. So there's that. But these are certainly fit the budget and have, all the features that you may want.
Okay. Physically, what type of earbud are they?
They have a little wand. They're in ear with a wand.
Okay. With a little stem.
With a stem, and you tap on it. The newer Soundcore ones that I have, they are also a wand, but you pinch them.
Yeah, just like AirPods.
Yeah, which I'm okay with. I don't mind that. It's a little bit easier not to accidentally tap it, but once you get used to whatever earbuds you have, I think the method of control ends up being moot.
Okay. I did want to consider that. He said he wants to use them while working out, and I'm like, okay, so people have preferences. I don't know what his preference is, but people have preferences for the physical fit of earbuds when they're using it to work out. So I wanted to give you a variety, and then you can say, oh yeah, that's the type I like, and there's going to be something in this list that will hopefully be to your liking. So I am also going to suggest something from Earfun, which I think Tom actually reviewed on AV Gadgets at one point as well. But a different model. The Earfun Free Pro 3, which are inexpensive, $70 Canadian, so they're not breaking the bank. You could go for a flyer on those. But these have just a little flexible kind of loop that nestles into the hollow of your ear and just gives a little bit extra hold in there versus relying entirely on the part that goes into your ear canal. It's just got that little bit of extra hold on the back of them, and that works really well for some people's ears, and it doesn't work for everybody's ears, but the price is really low and you could give those a try. So that's the Earfun Free Pro 3. The one that Tom talked about was the Earfun Air Pro 4. And then those. We mentioned Soundcore. So I know, Tom, you were a pretty big fan of the Space A40s, right? As their performance for the price.
Yeah, for sure. And these are all for the most part, the Soundcore offerings, the Earfun offerings, they're pretty solid. I tend to prefer Soundcore as a whole, simply because they have been sort of rock solid as far as their performance, and they have updated. They've kept their app pretty well updated. They're kind of everybody's leaning towards AI, which I'm not loving. But you don't have to enable it on the Soundcore. If I remember, at least the last time I opened it up, I haven't opened it up in a while. Let me see. I'll open it up.
So the Space A40s from Soundcore by Anker, $100 Canadian, so definitely fitting within the budget. But these are just a regular earbud style. They are relying pretty much entirely on the part that goes into your ear canal. So you want to find the right tips. It does come with a variety of tips, but that is what's holding these into your ears. If you like the type that has a hook that hooks around your ear, very secure fit, but again, not everybody's ears work perfectly with it. But Soundcore has an option here too, the Sport X20s, only $80 Canadian for the pair. Supposedly not quite as advanced in its features as the Space sub-brand. But the Sport X20s, if physically these work a lot better for you, then that matters a lot, and they still do have full active noise cancellation in them. From there, I did notice in his email it said it was sent from his iPhone, so I'm assuming he's an iPhone user. And for that reason, if you want all of the iPhone features, I'm not going to point you to the AirPods simply because they cost more than the budget that you suggested, but there are options from Beats, right? Beats is a wholly owned Apple company now. So you can still find the Beats Fit Pro. These are a discontinued model, and in Canada, the only place I could still find them available, and they were only in the purple color, but you can get them for $190, the Beats Fit Pro. Those are still supposedly available. I found them at Staples, of all places, and only in the purple color, but that was the actual place. I could add it to the cart and buy the Beats Fit Pro if I wanted to, and that gives you all of the AirPod features, but at a price that fits the budget you're talking about. And these have the Beats design for the Fit series, which again has like a little wing that comes out here, larger than the one that's on the Earfun Free. These have a little wing that nestles into the hollow of your ear and holds it very securely in there. Now, they've updated the Beats Fit Pro to the Power Beats Fit. So yeah, the names I'm not necessarily a giant fan of, but they've changed the little hook. They've made it a little bit more flexible, a little bit more comfortable. They've changed some of the tuning and the sound, but they're going for $250. There's no discount on those, so they're not fitting your budget. But if they feel better, that might be worth it to you. You mentioned wanting to maybe buy something at Canadian Tire. They don't have the Fit series available from Canadian Tire, but they do have the Beats Studio Buds Plus, and at $230, which is a little bit over your budget, but once you put in all those Triangle Rewards points, maybe it makes it affordable. But these are just being held in by the part that goes into the canal of your ear. They don't have any little wings or hooks or anything else to hold them in there. But if it's specifically to buy from Canadian Tire and have all of the Apple features, the Beats Studio Buds Plus could be an option.
Okay. We are at the end of our time.
Normally.
Yeah. And I
let's
have
see.
things to do. These next two questions look pretty long.
They're not really, but yeah, that's okay.
So then we can knock them out really quickly next week. So who we have left?
On our list, we have Jonathan and we have Michael. You know what? I'm just going to say to Jonathan really quickly in case he needs to buy something right now. If you get speaker wire that is plenum rated, you are going to be safe whether you're in the US or Canada. Whether the ratings are not exactly the same, like the regulation ratings are not exactly the same between US or Canada, but if you get plenum rated, that is going to work in either country. So I can say that for you really quickly if you have to buy in a hurry. But yes, there we go. So yeah, that was Jonathan and Michael are on the list to be first up next week.
All right. If you're looking for some discounts on your Sofabaton, we've got links for you. Check those in the show notes.
Yeah.
I'm going to thank our listeners of the week. We want to thank David, Michael, and Dan for going to avrant.com, clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and sending us a PayPal donation, as well as our 121 patrons at patreon.com.
Yes, indeed. David, Michael, and Dan, thank you very much for the PayPal donations. And then patreon.com/AVRant podcast is where you can go to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So a big thanks to our 121 patrons over there.
We also got notes of gratitude from Julian, Chris, Michael, and Joe. Thank you for thanking us.
Yeah, the names one more time were Julian, Chris, Michael, and Joe. Thank you very much for the notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
If you want to get your question answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.